On today's special crossover edition of Locked On Wild and Locked On Kraken, plenty of green and hopefully plenty of gold.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Final segment of today's special crossover edition, the SQUADCAST of Locked On Wild and Locked On Kraken. Once again, we are your team each and every day. And Erica, I love the way you laid it out before the break, because I think that is a great topic worth diving into. Is it seems like with both of these teams that there just is a need to kind of get the roster up with the times.
Yes.
We're seeing much more of a push on speed and skill in the game today. And I know, especially for the Minnesota Wild, they're caught in between kind of trying to play more of a slow it down, physical style of hockey that worked decades ago. And you probably are forced to do that with not having enough of that top end talent to contend. But it's really, from the Wild side, getting the Zach Parise and Ryan Suter ghosts finally out of here, shooing them away and never having to talk about them again. And also having a very big question coming up with Kirill Kaprizov's future.
Yeah.
It does feel like it's time to just have I don't want to say a yard sale, but it's time to do a little spring cleaning with this Minnesota Wild roster. And I know we saw a little bit of it with the Kraken with a couple of deals at the deadline. It seems like it's in a similar spot for the Seattle Kraken too.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd love to also just get your thoughts on where the Minnesota Wild need to go from here. But to answer your question regarding the Seattle Kraken, I've already alluded to a few of our absences, but when you lose players like Yanni Gourde, the Pepper Pot, Oliver Bjorkstrand, the Maestro, and Brandon Turbo Tanev, as one of our listeners said, immediately you lose all your cool nicknames for one. But also these were guys where I'll start with Yanni because I think he's the obvious example. If Yanni Gourde has 5% in the tank, he's giving you 7 to 15%. That's everything that was not present with this Kraken roster, soup to nuts, A to Z. And Yanni Gourde was one of the players, unfortunately, literally right before the trade deadline, was out for a little bit. Then you have Oliver Bjorkstrand, very unassuming with his size, but plays I wouldn't say a heavy game, but he plays a strong game. He plays a strong, smart, he's kind of slippery, right? He plays just a solid game. And for a Kraken team that was having difficulty scoring, maybe playing too direct, gripping the sticks, having a player like Bjorkstrand who can take contact, who will make contact, but also it can be a playmaker and a goal scorer. You want that. And then you have Brandon Tanev, who absolutely sells out on the PK. Turbo is absolutely right. There's on and there's supercharged or off, and supercharged. Like that's it. That's all you get. To play the fast game that Dan Bilesma wanted, you need players like that on the roster. And those are the players that had the trade value that we needed to move forward. So what does that kind of say? For me, that tells me that this roster is a little bit dilapidated, a little bit lopsided. And I've said this before, but for me, Seth, the Seattle Kraken getting to the playoffs in season 2, we arrived early, but the game plan, I think, got a little murky.
Yeah.
And even though it was in national media that perhaps there was a little bit of a tiff between ownership, the coaching staff, and Ron Francis, specifically in the front office, Ron Francis made a statement saying that wasn't the case. Now, maybe it wasn't the case that Ron Francis didn't want Dan Bylsma as the head coach. Maybe that's not true. But I'm just saying, again, being a former athlete, being around sports as much as I am, the way the team is playing, it doesn't look like everyone's on the same page, in the same chapter, on the same sentence. There's something that needs to be realigned. And while I like what the Seattle Kraken were able to get back, specifically in cap space, because cap space was a huge issue for us coming into this season, now it's a matter of, is Ron Francis and the rest of the front office, is this team going to do what it takes to take it to the next level? Including, you have a guy that was a Vezina finalist who you sent down to Coachella Valley. And some fans actually wanted you to send him down again on a paper transaction so he could be available for the Calder Cup playoffs. Are you kidding me? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So goaltending is a big question mark for me. I love what Joey Daccord has been able to do, and he looks tired. He looks gassed.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like watching basketball live. The energy of the crowd, the sound of the sneakers on the hardwood, one of my favorite sounds of all time, and maybe even a celebrity sighting courtside. If you want to catch a game in person, Game Time makes getting tickets even easier. Game Time's new feature, Game Time Picks, filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time scrolling through thousands of tickets. My favorite feature of Game Time is that they show you your view from your seat. I've seen some of those horror stories on social media where somebody buys a ticket and they're sitting directly behind a pillar in the very top of the stadium seats, and you see them looking out to the side like, oh yeah, I've got a great view of this game. You don't get that with Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
Today's episode of Locked On Minnesota Wild and Locked On Seattle Kraken also brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Did I really just spend all this money on tickets to see the Knicks just to see Tracy Morgan throw up on the sideline? I mean, who knows? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. I am a small business owner and I use Monarch Money. And what I love is the dashboard. It is super intuitive, seamless. I've used other things before to, again, track spending, but the cash flow report being front and center is huge for a business owner. And it's just one of the things that I absolutely love about Monarch Money. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. He looks absolutely mentally exhausted out there. And Philip Grubauer, he's getting his clap back. He said, hey, you want me to play well? I need repetitions. I need games. And he's still kind of not getting them. I guess, it's a back-to-back for us. So obviously one goaltender started in Chicago. We'll get another one today. This team's got to figure out if they're really serious about saying, when we make the playoffs, we're going to stay in the playoffs, because that's what they said when this team got started, and they've already broken their promise. That didn't happen. So that's what Kraken camp is feeling like right now. I don't know if it's a similar situation, because there's been kind of, I think it's funny, right? There's retool, there's rebuilds, there's hybrid rebuild, like there's all these reload, right? There's all these words. Which one for you, Seth, encapsulates where Minnesota is right now?
This is such a good question because it feels like it should be it feels like it should be a stronger retool based off of what this team has in their prospect system. You got Jesper Wallstedt, who is waiting in the wings to take over for Marc-Andre Fleury. His numbers have been very up and down this year, in part because I think there is some organizational disconnect between the Iowa Wild and the Minnesota Wild, to where it's like, what are you teaching these prospects? What are you having them do other than just, go out there and give it the old college try? Like, what are they working on is a big question that I'm trying to dive into myself. But it is just, it's a franchise that has built their mission statement on, we want to get to the playoffs. Right. And so you don't really ever afford yourself the opportunity to go the full, like, let's tear the siding off the house and start over.
Right.
So it's always a retool, but I love what you said about is Ron Francis going to be able to do what it takes, because Bill Guerin has put together a roster that features a lot of various no move or no trade clauses for his guys. And I know that the Seattle Kraken are a team that utilizes that quite frequently as well.
Yes.
But what it does is it leads you down a path in which, in order to get some of these prospects, a guy like Zeev Boyum, who is expected to be fantastic. I
wanted him so bad.
I will be thanking Danny Briere for the rest of my life for deciding, hey, we don't need a guy like that at 12.
Jeez, love that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, just amazing. Today's episode of Locked On Wild and Locked On Kraken is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. It connects you with the right talent. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. It's like job-free agency, and you can set the amount of time that you're looking for a particular person with a particular set of skills. And just go get them. Upwork makes it incredibly easy to do. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
But a guy like Zeev Boyum, a guy like David Juracek that they traded a first and a second round pick to acquire, plus other assets.
Yeah.
In order to get spots for those guys on the roster, it feels like there have to be subtractions on the current roster.
Right.
But based off of the makeup of the protections that were afforded to these veteran players.
Yep.
It leads you down the, well, Bill Guerin is going to have to make a hard choice or two. And to this point, he has continued to stand by and double down and triple down on a core that has shown that without Kirill Kaprizov, like unless Kirill Kaprizov is doing a large amount of the heavy lifting, it's a roster that just is, it might be enough to be a playoff team without him, but not much more than that.
Yeah.
Like I watched the game the other night between Dallas and Colorado, and I'm like, oh, these teams are in these teams are in another stratosphere in terms of talent and depth. And
Yeah.
My big question is just going to be, is Bill Guerin prepared to do what is necessary
Yes.
in order to get this roster to where it needs to go? And it will likely involve having to go to one of those players and say, will you waive?
Right.
And I just at this point, I haven't seen evidence that is yet on the table.
Yeah, and again, I feel like we're a mirror right here. we're talking the same thing, because that to me is the frustration of the Grubauer move. Like, again, you and I have talked on SQUADCASTs, on NHL, squad shows or roundups enough, and you're in the Western Conference, so you have a working understanding, right, that things have never worked for Philip Grubauer in Seattle. Now, I don't put that all on Philip. This season, I do put that on Philip. And, have even heard murmurs that maybe he didn't come in completely healthy or fit. So, but this is my thing, though. If you knew that in September, why did it take you roughly a month before the trade deadline to make a move?
Yeah.
Like, everyone could see it was not working with Philip Grubauer. It wasn't. The games were not great. But again, it goes back to, are you going to do what it takes? And this is a business. We don't like always having to talk about the hard-nosed parts of the business, but the truth of the matter is that you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet, as they say, right? Chop up some peppers, some onions. You got to do it. And I don't see the vision always for the Seattle Kraken when it comes to the timing of the moves. And I think we look to finding the Ellie Tolvanens, right, of the world, to fleecing Columbus to get Oliver Bjorkstrand. I love those moves. And those moves don't mean anything if then you have to offload those players, because, again, your 7-7 guys, your future franchise guys aren't doing what you need them to do. Because your most productive players, I just broke it down, the Pepper Pot, the Maestro, Turbo, they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And Turbo Tanev, we gave him a tribute video this week, and he leveled Shane Wright. He leveled him. Now, listen, we did a fair or foul on Locked On Kraken. I, as a sports person, I'm like, hey, all is fair.
Yeah.
All is fair. I would be lying if I didn't also say, I know Kraken fans didn't like that. I know you didn't. And that's also fair. But, where's our sandpaper? I know Kraken fans are dying because I'm always talking about sandpaper. I'm always talking about P&V. That comes from the Kraken legend, Ryan Donato. P&V, I'm just going to give it to you straight here, folks. Piss and vinegar. You got to feel the burn. All right, folks, you got to have it. We're lacking that. And as much as you want to say or be a fast team, a finesse team, you want to throw that out there, that's not where the Kraken is. So before you get to that level and you've just got guys that can snipe in their sleep, from the bus, you got to have your P&V guys. You got to have your sandpaper guys. But those are the guys that we have to also move because of how the team has been structured in the last few years. That's where the value is. And to your point, those are the contracts, or those are the guys that are willing to step into the office and say, all right, if this has to happen, I understand. Let's have a conversation. And now we're making accommodations for a player, but how much are we then making sure that those accommodations also fit into the immediate, intermediate, and the future of the franchise?
Bingo. Perfect. 10 out of 10. No notes. I agree wholeheartedly. It's amazing. It's amazing how these are two teams that utilize various shades of green. Yours are not nearly as much as the Minnesota Wild are, but
we're young yet. We've got time.
that we can also share in common a lack of high danger shots in front of the net, but also just an understanding of like, what are we and what do we need to be moving forward?
Boom.
That's a hell of a mic drop right there.
For real.
Erica, a blast as always. We'll see how things play out with this game, but it's going to be interesting to see, because these teams are in similar but also different spots. So we'll see which one wins out with this matchup. And I hope both Locked On Kraken and Locked On Wild listeners enjoyed tuning into our SQUADCAST here to gear you up for this game. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and better yet, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the course of the week. And for those that listen in the audio sphere, we love you as well. Whether you're listening on your phone, in the car, no matter where you listen, we appreciate you having us along for the ride as well. You can find new episodes for both shows every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.